24 hours a day on Sky Mobile and SkySports.com. This is Sky Sports News.
Today we're going to be looking at current issues in sport in like the pre-industrial times and to the modern times now they've changed during like the Industrial Revolution.
And Matt.
I'll now be passing you live to James Pooley at Oakwell.
Thanks, Jeff. Back in the pre-industrial times, sport was a much more violent, competitive, to-the-death ritual, as opposed to the more organised, rule-based, money-filled sport it is today. Sport was extremely competitive and time-consuming for little gain. For example, mob football were played for pride of villagers and could last for days. Mob football wasn't governed or organised. It was known as a ritual that it would occur on the same day or time every year. This sport was developed over hundreds of years at the time rate of society, introducing rules and governing bodies by the upper class to make it safer and more enjoyable. Through time, governing bodies such as FIFA ruled the whole sport and branched off individual bodies such as FA in England to enforce rules and introduce codification, which is the standard rules for a sport in order to make the ruling and results fair. At the early times there were only a few teams of villagers playing a certain sport. Modern sport has developed tens of thousands of teams across England and millions across the globe. Football went from being played as a one-off event every year to being only played at 3 p.m. on Saturday due to workers' availability, to football matches being played every single day and twice a week might be one today. James Pooley, reporting from Oakwell Stadium.
I will now pass you over to my correspondent, Elliott reporting live from Kingston.
Thanks, Jeff. So I'll start with industrialisation. This is the movement of most workers from being small farming villages into big factories that help hundreds of workers. It was the beginning of the modern era and modern sport, as factories began to mass produce sports equipment such as tennis rackets, footballs and tennis balls. This allowed people to take part in actual sports. Also, invention of steam trains allowed teams to travel great distances to play different fixtures. So I'll move on to urbanisation. This saw the dying off of more traditional sports, such as mob football, due to the fact that taller buildings were being built and there were less grass and it was not as easy to throw stuff around as it was. Also, because of the large number of terraced houses being built, where multiple families would be forced to live in the same one because they couldn't afford a house on their own. When factories were built, they were full of peasants who had very little money and were paid poorly, leading to massive profits from factory owners, and once they had enough money they would open a new factory. This led to a problem of who would take over running all the other factory. As a result, there were two options: give it to his oldest son or promote a peasant to become a manager. This created a class of people who fell between the two classes, upper class and peasants, which became known as middle class. My next point is public schools and rationalisation. Public schools and universities were crucial in the organisation of sport as a whole because they began the process of rationalisation and codification. Rationalisation was where sport began to be played for a reasonable amount of time and on a reasonable field, and not days and from one village to another. It also saw the introduction of more rules and regulations. One key example of this is mob football. This went from being played between everyone in one village trying to get the ball back to their church, being played by a set of people who would try to get the ball between a set of posts to score goals. My final point is codification. This is where universities such as Cambridge and Oxford will play each other at sports such as football. Before that, they'd sit down and agree to a certain set of rules prior to the match, so that they were all playing to the same standard and not one playing one set of rules and one playing another. This allowed the game to go on smoothly without argument. However, once they played that match, they would then start looking for other universities to play, such as Bath, places like that. They would agree on the same rules, and this was spread to other universities, so that they were all playing the same rules, and that everyone agreed to the same standards. Same people would come back to the country to their families, who were factory owners, and spread rules amongst peasants, offering prizes such as money and food if they won games. This is Ali McAnally reporting from AFC Wimbledon.
Sure introduces an antiperspirant engineered to protect men that constantly live under pressure. And now to protect you, so you can do more. Sure, it won't let you down.
Today we're going to be talking about commercialisation. In the era we live in, commercialisation is everywhere you look, from football stadiums, such as Newcastle United's ground being renamed Sports Direct Arena in 2011, shirt sponsors, there's players sponsored, there's corporate boxers, even non-related football things use football as a selling point. There's Gillette that have adverts with Lionel Messi and Roger Federer in to sell their products. Talking about technology in sport, it is now standard in tennis, major tennis tournaments, for a line review system to be in place. This means that players can actually challenge the officials if they don't agree with a decision they have given. It is powered by the Hawk eyeball tracking system. There's also more common examples such as goal line technology in football. After dubious decisions such as England v Germany in the 2010 World Cup, it's been heavily backed that goal line technology should be brought into football, and that is now in major leagues across the world such as the Premier League. In basketball, they also use a replay to review the last touch decision in the final 2 minutes of the game. This also determines whether the player releases the ball before the clock expires or not. Finally, in cricket, this has been driven by advances in TV coverage. Things that were once extra information provided by the TV networks are now being incorporated at the Decision Referral System, which is also known as the DRS, such as Hawkeye and Hotspot, and maybe even the old favourite Snicko. We are now looking at British sport from 1940 to today. There is now an improved standard of living enabled due to greater participation in sport for most social groups. This is brought about by sport being more accessible due to things such as the Olympics in 2012. Amateur administrators only reluctantly allowed commercial forces to enter the world of sport. Professional sports people had a long battle to be given fair rewards. Television coverage increased in importance for sport and the sponsors. The definition of amateurism for competition was replaced by the concept of eligibility. Central government involvement in sport has always been fragmentary. There has been a long-standing underfunding of sport by central government. An advisory sports council was established in 1965 and the Independent Executive Sports Council in 1972. Physical education was established in 1994. There's an act for it, and this is for educational values. The movement approach conflicted with traditional games and teaching. Physical education moved away from educational values towards physical recreation, and more recently towards health-related fitness.
Sport, games and leisure have been an important element of the human life for thousands of years. Villages were based on rural and they were localised, or one in 5 people lived in towns. It was self-sufficiency and production for life, and that's why they did farming to for themselves to grow their own crops and things like that. And it was highly divided along class of lines, like royalty, gentry and peasants, and high levels of poverty were among masses of people. Sport reflects the society in which it's played in, and we can only really understand development of sport if we can understand development of society as well. Such as mob football, there were no rules to it at all, so only rule they actually were no murder. And that's now changed into normal football today, which is organised, it's got plenty of rules in place, and it also uses codification to keep the rules going across the whole world for competitions such as Champions League. Holidays were characterised by such as things like sports and drinking mainly, and people love to gamble, but we still gamble these days, but just not as much as what we used to. People used to gamble on things like bear baiting and badger baiting and things like that. But peasants were spending all the money on things, they spend all the money on gambling, therefore they weren't spending it on the family, so that has stopped. And then they have local village games such as Skittles, physical game of strength tug of war and things like that, and they're obviously just fun for communities and village games and things like that. they were always boisterous and rowdy, and they were like violent and aggressive towards like all the activities they took part in and like all the sports they did. And this was because they were really competitive and wanted to win everything, like such as village to village they wanted to win. And leisure and bound like work up together, and people worked long hours when they were required, but yet again they like got very long holidays and they've got all weekends off and things like that because of religion really. All sports in like pre-industrial times were very simple, and they didn't, like I said, they had not a lot of rules to them at all. A lot of things such as cheese rolling, this was simple. Get some cheese, top it up, roll it down, chase after it, catch it. And then there were like shin kicking, which is basically a name, and arm wrestling, which is the name again. And they're just simple things that people love to gamble on and bet on and basically blow all the money.
A person coming in to town in a car and think, what's going off here? All these people congregating, and then all of a sudden they see a great rush of people and surrounded by a lot more people, and they think, I can't make this out. Then they'd see them pushed up against a wall and they'd think, what's going off here? And they wouldn't have a clue what it was all about, and they'd think it was a free-for-all. That's what they'd think. But you know, when you've been brought up round here, you know exactly what it is. So, as I say, there's no rules. The only rule as I know of is bang the ball 3 times at the plinth, you know, at the goal. That's all they can do. So there's no other rules.